Hey guys, this is the example from the textbook that goes along with the 12.2.9 question on your homework over frequency distribution and graphs. And in the question, they really didn't give you a lot of context here. I'm going to assume that when they say class and they have the intervals underneath it, that they're talking about class size. I'm just going to make it up and I'm going to go with it. So that this is telling you this is a class that has anywhere from 5 to 16 students. This is a class that has anywhere from 17 to 28 students, etc. So if you're looking at the frequency diagram here, the way you would interpret that is because this class has a frequency of 5, that means there were 5 classes that had somewhere from 5 to 16 students in them. So that's the meaning I'm going to give to this, since they didn't really give you a situation. So for part A, it's asking you to find the total number of observations. So in other words, you're going to add all of these together because you had 5 classes that fell into this interval. Then you had 6 that fell into that interval, 7 that fell into that interval, etc. So to find your total number of observations, all you're going to do is add together all of these frequencies. So if you add 5, 6, 7, 8, 4, and 25, you should have gotten 35 for your answer to part A. Part B is asking you for the width of each class. So in other words, how many numbers are included in each of those intervals. Now, a very common mistake that people make, that's why I'm writing this in red, you'll get used to whenever I make a mistake, I write it in red ink. Okay, so a lot of people will do, okay, so let's just say we want to find the width. 28 minus 17, well, that is 11. So the width must be 11. Nope, you're actually counting the number of numbers that appear inside of that. And because it's a frequency diagram, we know that all of these classes have the exact same width. So, because that's one of the rules for a frequency diagram is that they have to have the same. So I am just going to go ahead and do it for the first one. And you literally have to count how many numbers fall into that interval. So it's not 16 minus 5. I'm going to use tallies to kind of show you visually. So I'm going to count 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Notice that's actually 12 numbers that appear within that interval. So again, don't subtract. You're literally counting the number of numbers that appear. So really you can subtract and add 1, and that'll always get you the correct width for the interval. Question C is asking you for the midpoint of the second class. So this is our second class here in blue. That's 17 and 28. And remember to find the midpoint. You find the mean of those two numbers. So we're going to add 17 plus 28, and that is going to give us 45. And then we're going to take that 45, we're going to divide it by the two numbers. If I do that, that means I get a midpoint of 22.5. So again, mid means the middle. So you're finding the middle point in between that 17 and 28. So that is how we got the midpoint. Letter D is asking us to find what's called the modal class. And modal is derived from the word mode. And you know from your previous studies that the mode is the number in the data set that shows up the most. Or you could have more than one mode, like if you had 2 modes that show up the same amount more than on any of the others. In this case, we only have one though. The modal class is the one that has the highest frequency. In this case, we only have one that's the highest frequency. So the modal class is going to be 41 through 42. That is the interval that showed up more than all of the others. Last but not least in this problem, letter E is asking us for the class limits of the next class if additional class were to be added. So in other words, putting that into plain English here. So the table left off at 76. So if you were going to add another class to the table, obviously it would start at 77, right? And this is a case where you can just look at the difference if you subtract to figure out what the next number up would be. So from here, of course, you do 16 minus 5, and you know that the class, it's 11 bigger. So we're going to do 77 plus 11, and that tells you that the highest number in this class will be 88, because 77 plus 11 is 88. If you subtract in between each of these, you'll see that you'll get a difference of 11. Like 28 minus 17 is 11. 40 minus 29 is 11. 52 minus 41 is 11. So we know that the next biggest number has to be 77 because it's bigger than 76. And then we simply add 11 to get the final, the upper bound, like the highest number in that class. So the answer for E is that next one will go from 77 to 88.